Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back with another episode of Startup Hustle brought to you by Fullscale.io. Matt DeCoursey here with David Biga. Hi, David.
Hey, how you doing?
Well, thanks for coming to sit in for Master Watson today. Let me give you a quick intro. David is the creator and founder of Particle Space, found at particlespace.com. Hi, David.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, man. I'm just, it's I don't know what day of the week this will actually come out, but it is Friday here, and I'm ready for the weekend. Are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm excited to get out there and, enjoy the weather.
Yeah, it's been interesting as regards to the weather. So for those of you listening, we are here in Kansas City, right here in the middle of the country. It is hot. It is steamy. And I'm kind of over it, man. I'm kind of over it. So you guys know I like to encourage you to let things be interactive while you're listening to the show. Go to particlespace.com and you will be able to check out what David does. And we're going to talk today about intelligent space management and some things that your platform does to help people manage stuff.
Sure.
Is that about as general and non-specific as I could be?
Yeah, that is.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Particle Space. Recently, you were awarded a top 50 tech companies designation by the IFHA, also found at Intercon, not Intercom, intercon.world. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
So why? Tell us a little bit about, let's talk about Particle Space first. I know you have a background, you're from Chicago, you worked for Google, you also work for another company that's had a very well-publicized exit here in Kansas City of iVerify. Both, those companies are both pretty good. So let's talk about why yours is going to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what happened? How did Particle Space come about? Well, I was, back in the spring of 2015, I was driving home from doing some digital sound processing, just some afternoon, evening personal stuff that I was working on for manipulating sound and guitar pedals. And
I have a little background in that that industry, but sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know JHS pedals,
Mm-hmm.
but
I used to work for Roland. They were our competitors.
Oh wow, yeah. So
sure.
I used to do some stuff with them.
Sure.
And I was driving home one day, and I just passed an apartment complex, and I just had this vision for, man, what if I was flying above all of these apartments, and I looked down, and I could see everything that was going on within these buildings. So whether a tenant was late on rent, whether there was a flood, there was a work order, you name it. What if I could just have one instant visual snapshot? That spring, summer, I went home, and just throughout the summer, building out a prototype, proving that, hey, you know what? I could actually do something like this using 3D technology. And so...
Now let's stop for a second, and not to cut you off there, but not everybody that's listening is going to be familiar with, quote, 3D technology.
Sure.
So I always like to stop whenever people drop acronyms and stuff like that, so we can be well defined. This show's not only about people's experiences, it's also about our failures, and as well as trying to help educate.
Yeah.
So what is 3D technology? What do you mean?
So the best way of describing that would open your phone, go to Google Maps or Apple Maps, zoom in on a city,
I see.
And you're going to have skyscrapers rise out of the ground. So what we do is think of that exact concept, but with detail and color coding. So, you might zoom in on a building, maybe the Sears Center or Sears Tower in Chicago, and the different floors would change colors. Floor 10, floor 70, they'll change colors because of a different activity.
Okay.
Right, so
sure.
It gives you an instant.
So the same thing
visual.
with like an apartment complex or something like that.
Yeah.
And so what do those color codes represent?
So color codes, they represent different events. So they could be a sensor-related issue. They could be a logistical issue, such as a tenant did not pay their rent, or there is a pending work order. And what is neat is all of this is customizable by the user. So, an interesting fact is, we process images, in the human mind so much quicker than we do any other type of data, right?
And that's what a lot of this 3D technology is trying to solve. Like, you hear the term neural net, which is honestly, they're trying to understand like what that really is. I mean, that neural net, and that sounds like something out of Tron. Or like something out of what's that movie where Johnny Depp uploads himself to the internet? What's that called?
I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know the movie, right?
Yeah,
but the thing is like this neural net, and what David's talking about is what goes on in our brains and behind our eyes, and all this stuff is like it's like a supercomputer, and it does all this different stuff. So now things like computer vision and a lot of this other 3D technology is attempting to emulate it, but it's trying to catch up to our own human capacity, right?
And the simplest of way I could give someone to kind of prove that is, think of your home that you live in. Close your eyes. I guarantee it. You can walk around that home.
Yeah, sure.
Because you already have it mapped in your mind. So the benefit that particle space is bringing with the three-dimensional is that someone who's in charge of that area knows the building.
Yeah.
They're instantly going to recognize that.
Sure.
Hey, this is where a flood is.
Here's this corner, and this sensor's going off, and it's saying that there's water. And like if you've ever owned a building or even your own home, water in the wrong places is bad.
Yes.
Is that correct? So, and we've had a couple people on here, one of which was you might have worked with him, Joel Tepley.
Yep. He's a great guy.
And Joel's really mad science-y.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way down to the hair. And we love Joel, but so I've learned, it's possible that most everything I've learned about computer vision and neural nets and stuff like that, I actually learned from Joel just from hanging out with him. But and people don't realize this. So computer vision's technology that helps capture this neural nature of a view, and we look at things, and they're you look at your computer monitor, and that's technically a two-dimensional space. So one of the things he told me that's really difficult is that when you take a picture of a room and you have a corner, there's actually depth there.
Yeah.
So, and that's when we talk about 3D, we're talking about measuring that depth and having a better understanding of hey, that's not just a flat surface computer. That's actually 6 feet there, and if you move 4 degrees this way, it's only 5'10".
Yeah.
So it's complex.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that the kind of stuff you were doing with iVerify and some of that stuff?
Yeah. So some of the stuff we did there was really handling. So we had our scientist, right, who would come up with different algorithms, different models that would be in charge of detecting different features of an eye. To verifying someone's identity, to looking for glossiness. Is it a doll? Is it, how alive is this thing that it's seeing, right?
Is it a doll or is it a human? Wow, I never even thought about
right.
that.
And an interesting fact there is dolls actually, generally the marbles or whatever they have, they are more glossy. So, people would try and spoof that, right, using a doll or something to create an identity on or, So,
Weird.
So, my role specifically was handling a lot of our core engine, right, to make sure everything could be processed correctly. We could process frames and enabling a pathway to communicate with these models that did the different image processing to detect specific features.
So now how does that translate? So when you guys, and I don't want to get stuck on 3D tech too long, but obviously when you're relying on that and you have to have the model of everything for a building. Let's just take this, we've got building X here, and it's got 8 floors, and every floor has 20 apartments on it. Yeah. How do you get that? How do you map that?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. Currently, what we've done is we've created our own kind of 3D world, right? So we've kind of generated our own world access. So you have a X, Y, and Z, right? And from that, what we do is we can take a floor plan and generate a 3D model from that, and then all it does is stack floors.
From the basic floor plan.
Yeah.
So like a blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So you could take that and we could process that down and generate that 3D model from it.
Sure. That's actually, I mean, a blueprint is as precise as it gets.
Sure.
I mean, that's going to tell you the height, the length, the thickness of a wall, where pipes are, things like that.
Yeah, and then other things that we are doing to make it simpler, because a property manager, or building owner, they might not have those information, that blueprint lying around, right?
Some of that stuff's public record, isn't it?
Some of it, yeah. Depends on the building, and I think there's a size restriction, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So, but another way we're doing is through our mobile app, you can essentially walk outside and scan your building, right? And then we could generate a 3D model in our platform from those dimensions that are captured. And then the bare bones way of doing it is we just have basic 3D floor plans that you can select that look like your building, and then you can just build off that.
I see. So you mentioned that it's customizable. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Mentioned that it's customizable. So that means your strength is also your weakness in that regard. And I have firsthand experience with this. Nothing nearly as complex as what you're doing, but as the founder of Gigabook, we built a fully customizable appointment management system, and then very quickly realized that was our strength. It was also immediately our weakness, because that meant that we had to figure out how to help people customize it quickly and efficiently without getting frustrated or just quitting.
Yeah.
Have you had some of those same challenges building this along the way?
Yeah, we definitely have. I think what we've kind of focused on
and it's because people inherently aren't patient.
Yeah.
They don't want to learn something new. They're, why doesn't this know everything about me now?
Which is why we've created kind of like base floor plans that are general enough that people are okay with.
Sure.
It's usually what we see, right? But we'll just say, hey, here's it takes a minute to add a 3D building in our platform. Going through this quick process, right? This quick start. All they do is fill out the building info, like name, address, and then they select a floor plan that looks like it. How many floors does it have? And then is there a template that you created already? And that's it. Yeah. And then boom, you have a 3D building.
And is that because not everybody not all your users like inherently care about having it be 100% like accurate? They want to just manage the space.
Yeah.
They probably don't have sensors and other stuff, or at least not yet.
So it depends on the industry you're dealing with. If you're dealing with like facility managers, generally they want that more specific detail.
Sure.
And the reason why you'd want that is because, if a pipe breaks, they need to know within that, like an office space, where exactly that pipe is broken. Whereas, property managers in, multi buildings that are maybe 5 stories each, right? All they might care about is having water sensors, or fire detection in key locations, and then if those trigger, then they know, generalized where that event is occurring.
Yeah, and if you own a 15-story building and there's a massive water leak on the 15th floor, that's going to wreak havoc for the 14 floors.
Yeah, I mean,
like big time.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of damage.
Water spreads.
Water is obviously the opposite of fire, but it's as destructive.
Yeah.
Maybe not as destructive, but it sure comes close. Wreaks a lot of havoc. So, all right. So now with this, this is one of the things that you talk about here in the notes I'm looking at is there's not hardware required to use particle space, which could be a specific advantage for you. Yep. Is that the purpose? Now, do you integrate with hardware that people may already have?
Yeah. So here's part of the reason why we really were able to why we got recognized as top 50 tech companies in the nation, and that's because of how. So in real estate, we've really identified 2 sectors. You have property management and you have building management. Property management is all logistical, tenants, work orders, people, background screenings, payment collection, all of that. building management would be the physical building itself. Is the AC too high? Is there a toilet that needs to be replaced, etc. And what we do is we combine that and enable you in a way to say, hey, let me talk to an existing infrastructure, right? So a little history, IoT has essentially been around for, over 30, 40 years. It just hasn't been labeled as such. And the reason for that is you have these controllers in buildings, Johnson Controls, Siemens, right, Trane, and these systems are connected to HVAC, to fire alarm, security, access door controls, different things, and they all communicate back to a panel, right? Some sort of controller. That controller runs on either BACnet or Modbus protocol, and these essentially are IP-based protocols. And so if you have a router, which everyone has internet now, right?
Sure.
Your ISP provider, they give you a router, and so all you have to do is plug a Ethernet cable in the back of that router into the panel and enable particle space to talk to that. So,
sure.
I can go into this building. If they're running, let's say they're running Trane, that's a BACnet protocol. So.
And Trane's air conditioning.
Yeah, they do HVAC. They do a lot.
Right.
But
so, and I've actually been down at Hy-Vee Arena hanging out with Steve Fouch, the guy that owns the place, and I was sitting in his office, and he was actually on Trane's site.
Yeah.
Because think about that. This is an arena that at one point held 16,000 people and now is rebuilt 2 different levels. Air conditioning's something that matters there.
Yeah.
And also when it's on, when it's off, if they're going to have a massive, if they're going to fill that whole place up, they have to start cooling it the day before.
Yeah. So
and just different stuff. But I saw Trane, and it was they had a pretty intricate, almost like a 3D model.
Yeah.
And it was giving him some data. So you'll work with some of that as well?
Exactly. Okay. So we're an aggregator for all of this data, right? We want to play nice with everyone. So back to what I was talking about, how we're hardwareless is there's a lot of infrastructure that already exists,
right,
that we can communicate with. There's so much segmentation with this IoT, or these segmented markets, right? You have all these different companies creating all these different IoT devices. They're creating their own proprietary platforms and just making a lot of noise. But, it's just adding so much more confusion and problems because I have to have accounts for, my Nest. I need to have account for, my Google Home. Well, now they're one, but I need to have an account for my Vivient system. I need to have an account for Trane. I need to have an account for Johnson Controls, right? When at the end of the day, all of these devices are essentially the same in how they communicate, and particle space can talk to that directly just through a simple router that is already there. And so aggregating that data and displaying it in 3D models to show where an event occurs. But then the interesting thing as well is we're taking that data and we're beginning to do some interesting analysis, such as preventative maintenance, when your AC might go out because of how certain rooms are running, what's the temperature outside versus what you're trying to maintain inside. You can know, when a fan might go or, when the coils, right?
So with that, now you're talking about pattern recognition, and some of that's like AI, machine learning type stuff. So, this is a whole nother avenue.
Yeah. So, think about this. I'm a property manager, right? I'm not techie at all. I might, but majority of folks aren't going to be a hardware focused, right? They're not going to know how to fix their HVAC system or whatnot. But if all of this can be provided to you through visual cues and just telling you this information, your risk scores, that can save you thousands of dollars, as well as not only being able to prevent something like a AC unit going out, but if a critical event, response time is important. Right.
Also, that's back to fire and water or stuff like that. That can be a big deal. And then another thing too is, as hot as it gets in the summer, different places, you can literally kill people with people die in some of these heat waves. It's crazy. But that's, the struggle is real on some of this. And so with with things like climate change, and obviously like the world's pretty populated, that's continuing to grow, and things like energy conservation and green tech, clean tech kind of stuff coming up, do you guys also help manage any of that?
Absolutely, we could. Because of, so from a data side, we could help analyze and even trigger commands to, help reduce for instance, we could
Like, hey, you're cooling this hallway like all day, every day,
and your door's open.
Or there's been one person that's been in this hallway all day.
Yeah. So one of the things we're doing, one of our clients, North Point Development Group, we're in their smart building initiative for their beyond self-storage units, and one of the things we're doing is based on the foot traffic that comes in through sliding doors, right? We can determine like, hey, here's what you should put the AC at because of, during these times you don't have that much usage, right? You don't have that much flow. And so, here's the neat thing. We can also trigger commands. So we could essentially automatically adjust that, assuming we can talk to the controller itself and it's not just a read only, right? Like give me data. So we could actually send commands to these controllers that, unlock doors, to change the temperature, to turn on lighting, you name it.
So your TAM, or your total addressable market here, is huge.
It is.
It's massive. It's too big for even one company to even handle all of it, which also means you probably have a shitload of competition or people competing for this business. So how are you handling that? And I mean, like, what's your plan? Like, so in order to sell stuff, theoretically you need to help people sell more, spend less, preferably do both. So, I mean, obviously the workflow efficiency that could come in and like some of those savings, but like, where's your specific advantage there? Where are you gonna crush the world?
So what we're
sorry, that's a tough question.
It is, because
it is.
there's so much. So what we've kind of been doing is narrowing down in commercial. We work with residential as well, but really our sweet spot is right now is commercial. And the reason why is because they like both avenues. They like being able to manage people, collect rent through our platform, screen the commercial tenants, but then also their facility managers get the insight of the building, right? So it's a 360 view, 360 platform for them of total management. And a little bit on the competitor side, right, is, we really have competitors in each market spot, meaning, kind of how we identified the two sectors, right? We had building management and property management. We kind of have competitors on either side of those, but no one really in the middle that connects both of these together.
Sure.
And that's what really sets us apart. So, some of the issues we would have is, maybe on the property management side, they're already using a platform like Yardi or Buildium, and they're like, I don't care about the building management. This is good enough. That could be a deterrent for having folks switch to our platform. Same thing with the building management side, right? They might not have a need for property management. So they're like, I like what I have. It's good enough. So that's where we found, though, in the commercial space, they like having both. But with the data aspect of things, that is helping to make more incentive.
Sure. So, and the thing is competition's good in this case. There's literally like an infinite amount of market here. And I say infinite, it's because we keep building more buildings.
Yeah.
and other things are needed. For a lot of entrepreneurs, they're going to look at that, and I did this at one point myself. Back to Gigabook. The whole thing was, I was like, oh my God, anybody in the world that owns a business could use this. Yeah. This is amazing. And then I realized that wasn't amazing.
Yeah.
Because you can't reach everybody. Like a market that is too broad. That's why Coca-Cola or whoever has to buy Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
For like $5 million a spot, because they actually have the ability to market to anyone and everyone, because we all drink liquid. right? But
Yeah.
not everybody uses intelligent space management software or owns a building or manages a building or whatever. But for those that live in the building, we want all those things to respond as quickly, effectively, and preferably invisibly.
Yeah, and that's essentially what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're providing tenant tools so you can submit work orders and automate your payment for your rent, but we're not, providing those smart amenities, right, for the tenants to then control. This is, we want to be that umbrella, that invisible force field to them per se.
So you talk about collecting rent. That's actually a big thing because, cash
Yeah.
flow is the lifeblood of any business.
Yeah.
And oh man, I'll tell you what, I've been through it. Any business always has cash flow issues. Theoretically on some levels you do. Because people don't pay in a timely way.
Nope.
Like for whatever reason, they forgot, they're out of the country, they don't have the money, they're just never going to pay you. Like whatever. So what's the process for helping people collect? I'm assuming you guys don't actually truly handle the money.
So we use, everything's streamlined.
Yeah.
So
That's what I said. Like you can platforms like, with Gigabook, we will help you collect a payment for the services you book online, but we never touch that money.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So how it works is if I'm a property manager, or I could be anyone, and I want to collect rent from my tenants. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm going to sign up and I'm going to create an account receivable or multiple accounts receivable. And then depending on who that tenant, which belongs to, which building, meaning which account receivable the money goes to, whenever tenant pays, that money instantly gets transferred to that account receivable automatically same day. So kind of how we help automate that process through what we call Tenant Space, which is our tenant version of our property management tool.
Sure. And, I would imagine that you can look back at the tenants some people I just don't pay on time. Ever.
Yeah, so, we have alerting,
Ever.
right?
Ever.
Well, yeah, that's an issue, and we can only send so many alerts that, hey, you're late. But,
Yeah. Well, you can't make someone pay. But,
absolutely.
being able to have an understanding of that as a building owner and not, really any business manager, and not have to, go in and look at the analytics. Because, it's one thing if you own like 2 rental homes.
Yeah.
If they paid the rent or not. But
Yeah.
when you have a building that has mega space in it, and so I think that, so once again, we're here in Kansas City, and Kansas City is on some levels, maybe not the best market for particle space, meaning people overwhelmingly live in single family homes here. Now you're from Chicago, where in Chicago proper, that's not the case. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Most people don't live in detached single family homes. There's a lot more apartment dwelling, but worldwide, that's how most people live.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things. I mentioned earlier, I used to work for Roland.
Yeah.
And, Roland's the world's largest manufacturer of electronic musical instruments. And by volume, they are the world's largest drum manufacturer.
Yeah.
Which nobody, immediately associates them with drums. But then you start thinking it's because they make digital drums. And because people overwhelmingly live in tight spaces and tight quarters. And if you've ever lived or had a kid or owned a drum set, you know that they are loud.
Gotcha.
Really loud.
Yeah.
So and those are the things, I just remember that particular part of working for them. I was like, oh wow, because I grew up in Kansas City. I lived in Indianapolis for a while. I've just never really I've lived in an apartment once in my life. So it's different, but some people are completely the opposite. Okay. So your background is as a software engineer. So how has that benefited you with what you've done in particle space, and how has that also maybe been a detriment?
Yeah, so, the huge benefit is I'm a tech founder, right?
Yeah.
I've been able to build everything myself and build a lot of the technology without needing to get additional resources just because I had the skill set to do so. But at the same time, that's hurt me because as a generally tech founders or we're just developers, we love our technology.
Yeah, they're not most tech founders aren't the sales.
Well,
guys,
so
they don't think about they're like, tech. Oh shit, I got to sell something, back to tech. You know, which is obviously important. If you don't have the technology, it's hard to sell something, but
Yep.
you gotta find a balance.
So the biggest thing for me was realizing that, hey, you can't fall in love with the technology, because if you do, you'll continuously spend time perfecting it.
Yeah.
Right. And at one point you have to get these key pain points finished, or at least somewhat solved, and begin, you know, going out there, generating some revenue, get some clients, and then build from that, or raise money, right? You know, so
have you done that?
No, not yet.
In the process of it?
Nope, I've bootstrapped everything. So,
is that something you're opposed to?
Nope, not at all.
Sure.
I just think that I've had the resources at my disposal to be able to accomplish as much as I've been able to.
At some point, that's inevitable, because I said, like with your total addressable market being as big as it is, like you vault yourself.
Oh, you
almost have to be huge or acquired by someone who's then going to make it huge.
So, you know,
and there's, you know what, either or can be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they really can. You talk about falling in love with your technology. So is that one of those? So as someone who, I tell people I write checks, not code, and they're both important parts of the process. I mean, they really are. But at the same time, I've been around this, like with developers, and they're like, I don't know, man. I don't want to hear anything. I don't ever want to hear about how fucking elegant your code needs to be. Mm-hmm. Does it work or does it not? Like, and you know, I wrote a book called Balance Me and this is topical. It's about you know, finding balance in your personal, professional, and physical life. But so much of it comes down to relying on the things that are important. But really, in the end, things do boil down to yeses, nos, zeros, ones, true, false, win, lose, black, white, up, down, left, right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So like, and as someone that's building the tech, you talked about there are these key pain points that we have to get through. Yeah. So like for those that are tech founders out there, like, do you think, now look, you sometimes charge through these things and realize that you are accumulating what is called technical debt. Yeah. And technical debt are the things that you are going to have to go back and fix at some point. Yep. So where do you bridge the gap there?
So that's tough, right? Because I used to always, you know, if at first you're stuck in building out your tech and falling in love with, you know, everything you're trying to build, the aspect of you just have to move. You have to continuously move forward.
I think that's great advice, right? Just right there. Those like keep moving forward.
Yeah. So
next.
Have you? Did you, at the end of the day, did you accomplish the business requirement, right? What is acceptable for an end user for their whatever pain point you're solving? As soon as you've done that, I mean, you got to move to the next. And you know, I think for me, what I try and do is, from a technical side, is build core components, and of course, as you're more experienced, you're just going to write better code in general. But leave yourself comments. Leave things structured in a way through your dev process.
Leave breadcrumb trails for the next guy. Yeah.
Or yes, you know.
I think that's really smart right there, because one thing that people that go charge, not everyone's good at that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you get someone else that comes later behind you, and now you finally got some help, and they're just sitting there going, what does this do? Yeah. And then also what I've learned is, like, you hear this, there's programmers use this term called spaghetti code. Yeah. And that is like everything is tied together, but it looks like a bowl of spaghetti with sauce in it. So you're like trying to like pull one, and we went through this with Gigabook, because, you know, the thing is you don't necessarily know what you don't know until the moment you realize you don't know it. I know that sounds like a weird statement, but it is true. It is. When it comes to building software or a business or whatever. Yep. And there are things that like you get in and until you get your stuff in front of real people, or things that I guess in this day and age, things that it integrates and reacts with. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Google Calendar sucks to integrate with. Mm-hmm. It just has its own weird kind of rules and things like that, and it just makes it kind of challenging to make it universally sync. Mm-hmm. Because you get back to that customizable thing. Some people want the client's phone number in there. Some people don't. Some people want an address. Some people don't. You're just like, what are you going to do? What are you going to get in there? But those basic business requirements help you get open. I like to sometimes reference there's an old kind of business, I don't know if we call it a fable or a story. There's a shopkeeper, and he's so obsessed with cleaning the store that he forgets to open it every day. And you can do that as a developer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, I like to drive that point home because that the term MVP, minimally viable product, get it out there, hear what people have to say about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, the new thing's MMP,
which is
minimal marketable product.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to write that down.
So I think of like MVP as, you're getting this in front of investors to show them basic functionality, and then the MMP is what you got the money for, right? Whether if you raised, and that's what you can sell, you can market, right?
Well, and that's a key thing too. So you talked about like being a developer and like, so you can raise money or you can sell stuff. I got to be honest with you, man, I'm just a big fan of selling stuff. Like nothing validates what you're doing more than other people paying for it and then continuing to pay for it.
Absolutely.
So and that's one of the challenges. Like you can have so if you want to raise money or you're trying to find investors, I'm going to tell you right now, the one thing that they're going to look at is, are you selling stuff?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes, they'll look at the founder. They will look at your history. They want to bet on the jockey. They want to bet on the horse. Is this a good product? Are you immediately running into the room with an 800-pound gorilla that's just going to crush you like Donkey Kong? Or, I mean, it's true, but the thing that you are going to, that nothing will make you more desirable and more attractive to other people, not only employees, investors, partners, anybody, than selling stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
and that's what I had to learn, right? Because I just had to learn you got to get out there and sell.
Yeah.
And that's just because that hasn't been my strong suit, right?
Well, and you can't be great at everything too.
No,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. So did you have to teach yourself how to sell, or do you have someone else that's helping you with that?
I had to teach myself, but I've had great mentors.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude,
my
selling
advisors.
can be really hard. It could also be really easy. Like and I'm a sales guy. So the number one thing I always tell people is, first off, you got to ask someone to buy something.
Yeah. Don't
just be like, hey, look. And then you're waiting for them to say, you know what, I'll take it. You have to ask. Like if you ask, you'll sell more stuff. Mm-hmm. And the next thing too is like not focusing on the features, but instead the benefits that those features provide. So like let's talk, like you mentioned all kinds of stuff. You're like, we can help you collect rent. We can help you do work orders. We have 3D technology. We can integrate with potential warning sensors. It's customizable by building. It's great for facility managers. That's my response to those things, because those are all features. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't mean to poo-poo on the features, but and so I'll give you an example, because I really do think this is important, is we can help you streamline your rent collection process. We'll improve your cash flow. It'll help you have a better understanding of the cadence of your payments. Because here's the thing is, like, if you look at a building and you say, okay, we collect 70% of our rent on time, we collect 20% of it a week late, and 10% of it seems to always be a month behind. Yeah. That's good stuff to know. You can understand your cash flow.
And then at the simplest of form, you're staying connected truly to your buildings.
And then other things too, like you talk about a feature of like, we integrate with warning sensors. Like that is awesome, but if you're trying to sell it, you say we can integrate with warning sensors. It will increase response time if you have a critical incident that could cause building damage. So that's a benefit. Yeah. And that's what will get the attention of the people that are listening and wanting to buy something. Yeah. And then sometimes they are so type A, you have 10 seconds. Are you interested in me helping you save a hell of a lot of money, David?
Yeah.
Because that would get my attention. Yeah. Hey, do you want to save a whole lot of money? I mean, sure. What do you got? You know, do you want to sell a lot more stuff? Okay, you got my attention. Sometimes it's that simple. Sell more, spend less, preferably do both. Okay, so once again, you can check out Particle Space at particlespace.com. They're on the Facebook. They added the back end. I'm kidding. at Particle Space LLC. If you want to check us out, you want to learn more about what myself and Matt Watson do, you can go to fullscale.io. We're also on Instagram at Startup Hustle Podcast. You can also check out our new YouTube channel. You can see what we look like compared to what we sound like. Folks, do I look like what I sound like? I don't know if that's a good thing. So, David, thank you very much for coming in.
You.
Once again, go to particlespace.com. See y'all next time.
Thank you.